This is Behind the Swipe, the podcast that takes you inside the lives of real men and women over 40 who have taken the plunge into the often murky and sometimes exhilarating world of online dating. Each week, we explore new topics through the experiences and expectations of real online daters just like you. I'm your host, Hoyt Prysock. Join me as we peel back the one-dimensional dating profiles to discover the real men and women behind the swipe. Welcome to this week's episode of Behind the Swipe. You know, I was all set for a very different show this week. Interviews done, research completed, guest hosts lined up. We were on the home stretch. So what happened to derail that? Barbenheimer happened. Stop the presses, new direction. We need to talk about Barbie. Well, not Barbie so much really. We need to talk about Ken. And by Ken, I mean stereotypical Ken. But let's back up for a second. I had been eagerly awaiting Christopher Nolan's new film, Oppenheimer. I had every intention of seeing it in IMAX this weekend. When I suggested to my wife, Katie, that we should get Oppenheimer tickets for Saturday afternoon, she reminded me that she and a half dozen 50-something girlfriends already had plans. They were going to all don pink outfits and go see Barbie that very afternoon. Did I want to come? My response took all of about 10 milliseconds. No, thank you. But when she came home, she convinced me that this movie was, in fact, a clever and funny commentary on the roles that women are assigned in this culture and the idealized roles that they aspire to, all told through the lens of the iconic 11-inch Barbie and her fellow dolls. It was all she could talk about for the next 24 hours. Okay, that was it. I had to see it. And we did. What intrigued me most was the film's treatment of Ken in relation to Barbie. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% supportive of the empowering message for women that is at the heart of the Barbie movie. And I'm not in the target demographic. You see, as a male child of the 60s and 70s, my dominant figurine influence was in the form of a G.I. Joe. I had always assumed that Ken was Barbie's boyfriend. Apparently, while Ken had feelings for Barbie, those feelings were forever destined to be unrequited. Oh, I guess I should have mentioned that there were going to be spoilers in this episode. Sorry, too late. The filmmakers have cast Ken as a sweet, uncomplicated, and shallow character. They later morphed Ken into the polar opposite as the macho, bro, arrogant asshole, kind of like an Incredible Hulk transformation. But all of this got me thinking about the central conundrum for men in the online dating world. What is it that women are really looking for? If Barbie and Ken both joined Hinge, let's say, is there any scenario under which Barbie would swipe right on this guy? All right, I'll concede it was Ryan Gosling, and this just may have been the one exception to the rule that men should not post shirtless pics on their profile. So to help me unpack some of these issues, I am joined today by two of my absolute favorite people, each of whom is uniquely qualified to weigh in on this. Bradley Richardson and Morgan Lawley. Bradley is the creator of Advanced Adulting, where he coaches and creates content to help grown-ass adults navigate the shifts and changes of midlife. He's a 5-time best-selling author, speaker, coach, executive, who's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Rolling Stone, on Good Morning America, NPR, and more. A 50-something, fifth-generation Texan and father of 3 grown kids, he lives in Dallas, Texas, and he can be found on social media and the web at I'm Bradley Richardson. And Morgan Lawley is an award-winning producer, director, designer, and creator in the film and television industry. She currently has several fascinating projects in development, But Morgan also has some unique connections to the Barbie world. And she's currently single and dating online. So welcome to both of you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the plug.
So Morgan, I want to start with you. It seems like if Barbie's inventor, Ruth Handler, had noble aspirations about how her doll might inspire young girls to dream big and go on to independently achieve their goals, you just might be the poster child for that. So where did your Barbie love affair start?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was born in 1963, so sort of at the first rise and wave of the brand. We didn't have a lot of options back then. The toy market wasn't as broad and saturated as it currently is. Wasn't so specialized and niche. So, we had Barbie as the unless you wanted to play with a baby doll, Barbie was it. And so immediately when I think my mom let me have, maybe it was Kmart or somewhere where we were shopping, and I was like, yeah, I want that. It just started from there. And then I just kept collecting them and collecting them and collecting them until I built sort of little Barbie compounds and worlds in the living room that was shut off to the rest of the world. But, we weren't allowed to go in there, but I got to build my Barbie camp. My brother had the G.I. Joe, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, it started at probably 6, something like that, going into the 70s and aligning, paralleling the women's movement as well. So Barbie as a brand just kind of kept morphing and changing with the times.
And so as we were preparing for this, you had held up and you have in front of you probably 7 different versions of a Ken doll.
No, I have 4 Kens here, but I had probably who knows how many I've had over the years, and they've lost their way. This one's legs fallen off. I had to kind of stick them back on. This is Malibu Ken.
So
Would
Bradley,
you like me to introduce them?
well, I'll interview them later because
Okay.
I'm sure that they've got sort of emotional wounds that they have to deal with here as a result of the rejection from Barbie. But Bradley, so you grew up like I did with G.I. Joes and this masculine identity of the go get 'em guys. Tell me about
Oh,
your sort
absolutely.
of early experience with that.
My early GI Joe experience. Yeah, I had a much younger sister, so it wasn't like we had Barbies laying around or anything. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in that era where yeah, he was the cool boy's doll, and you didn't think of him as doll. I never referred to him as a doll or thought of it that way. It was a plaything. The cool part was the imagination that you could do with it. And, he was a badass. I mean, he did everything. And kind of like Morgan had the little compound or encampment there. Of course, I mean, I had the helicopter, I had Kung Fu Grip, I had Eagle Eye, I had the white one, the black one, the one with the beard, everything. And it was cool. And, you could use your own imagination for having these adventures. That's just it. And I think the interesting thing about it, granted, I got 3 grown kids, and I think raising kids now would be really difficult just for toy choice alone, but it was okay because, hey, Barbie was for girls and she had her, the Ken thing, and G.I. Joe was your action figure. So you did action things and manly things, but I really didn't think about it any other way. It just was.
Was there a G.I. Joe girlfriend in that in that world?
No, oddly enough, there wasn't. They never brought that out. But here's the thing though. Okay. So what you do is if you had kids in the neighborhood and there was a girl there, of course you'd have, and I think, in prepping for this point, and I talked a little bit about this. Okay. So no, I didn't have any Barbies, but if there were girls in the neighborhood who had one, of course they're going to get together. G.I. Joe and Barbie hooked up. I mean, that's the thing. They're the boyfriend girlfriend. It's not like, oh, there's Ken. He was never in the equation. It was G.I. Joe and Barbie. At least in my little world. Your results may vary.
My brother totally traumatized me with his G.I. Joe. He and his friends went into my Barbie world when I wasn't there, and they stripped them down, and they brought their G.I. Joes in, and
Of course.
they traumatized me. I was like,
Yeah.
it was like a crime scene. I was devastated. That was, I think, my first, sexual sort of impression was that.
Right. How sad is it here? Okay, so we'll go there. So for little boys, I guess of our generation, Hoyt, okay, the first boobs you ever see are going to be either the weirdness of a Barbie or National Geographic. Both will traumatize you right there, and don't serve you well for later in life in any way, shape, or form.
So, with the GI Joes, I think that's where guys sort of got their training and their inculcation that it's expected of you that you will run across fields with bullets raging to go save a buddy, right? And actually, that's one of the elements, I think, of masculinity that is, underrepresented here. And that is this role of protector. And that was really what I think the GI Joe embodied.
I agree with you. I think protector is a good thing, but I think if we're 30, 40 years plus removed on this thing, I think that the word I would use is capable. So rather than protector, I think that's huge, but I think capable. And let's look at that and juxtapose that against Barbie here. Okay. So Barbie's capable because what? She was an astronaut. She was a model. She was a lawyer. She was president. She did all the shit. And with G.I. Joe, he was capable because he got stuff done. Okay. And if that meant protecting his buddy, flying a chopper, looking at dealing with the biohazard thing, or, getting together with the village and Barbie, he was capable. And I think if we really bring it back, that's what we're looking for. Okay. Women are infinitely capable. Okay. In any number of things, in business and everything, it's equality, but capability. But there's also that thing that is interesting. And I see this as a generational difference too. People of Gen X, of our 40, 50 something plus, there is that idea of polarity that existed with G.I. Joe and with Barbie and, with Ken to a degree, I guess. But that's really what, I'm fortunate to have a huge, social media following, probably about 70 to 80% women. And really, if that age, if you ask them point blank, they're going to go, yeah, I want a man's man. I can do my own shit. I still want to. I just want a man's man to be able to do it.
That's right.
So it's capability.
So Morgan, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of parallel there. I think I do a lot of self-help kind of pursuits. Tony Robbins, a big fan of Tony Robbins. I do a lot of his seminars and stuff, and he has a relationship day in one of his programs called Date with Destiny. This is a little off topic, but it's really about, what women want ultimately. And, he has, and what men know about what women want on a, real soul level. And at the beginning, he says, men pay attention. How many of you had fear for your safety today? Every hand, 6,000, women's hands shoot up. How many of you, feared walking to the car alone at night? All the hands shot up and the guys are looking around like, what? What do you mean? I'm not a threat. Why are you afraid of me? Right. And it's not you in particular sitting next to me, but that kind of we just are always on guard around our safety. And then he moves on to say, women, how many of you have fantasies about being taken or, held or pressed against a wall? Again, every hand shot up. And so it was this strange, it exposed, like we want part of that, but not all of it. Yeah. We don't want the predator. We want the protector. And so we do, I don't know, I can't speak to every woman or about every woman, but that is a recurring theme.
So that's interesting. And it gets to a thing that I wanted to explore here, because one of the things that struck me about the Ken that was presented, the meek and mild Ken, when he entered the real world and his eyes were open to this patriarchy and men running the world. And the thing that he found that he lacked was competence. And he lacked the competence all he could do was beach, right? That was a Ken role. So he had no competency. He had no strength. So it was clearly a polarized caricature, really on both ends of that. And it reminds me of, you guys may be familiar because he has a podcast called Prof G. And it's Scott Galloway And he talks about this sort of crisis for men and particularly young men, but it's around how they embrace their masculinity. And he says, look, he says, men think more about sex than women do. And they use that as a motivation to meet women. So men are more impulsive. And these are the guys that'll run out in the middle of a field to save a buddy. So there's a protection. And not that women won't do that, but the distributions are just sort of different in that. And so you hear in conversation women's encouraging men to be softer, to be more in touch with their emotions, and to, in some ways, act more like a woman and be less masculine. But, the weird thing, this gets to the point, Morgan, that you were talking about, is that they don't want to have sex with those guys. They do want that strange combination. And I think it makes it a difficult time for men dating online. Bradley?
Well, Hoyt, I agree with you 1,000%. I don't think it's just dating online. I think it's just being and living existing in America today as a man. I think a lot of it does have to do with, and it started with our generation, really. You find a lot of, again, I'll talk to clients of mine and they'll say, what's the problem with men? I said, well, because they act like adolescents because we get these mixed messages where it is this mixed message of, well, I should be this way, but I should be this way. And really, so they're confused as anything. And so they end up either being a wuss or, some sort of dickish behavior. So it's opposite extremes. I think though that the way that I put it, and I know a lot of men who are true voices in this men's movement. Okay. I mean, legit trained killers. I mean, special ops guys, badass guys. I mean, real life G.I. Joe type, but who are also in touch with things. And I'm not talking the extreme far Andrew Tate type. And I'm not talking, all peace, love, and light. I think it's I genuinely believe that what people are looking for, the goal would be a little bit Buddha and a little bit Spartan. You want that man who is capable, that guy who is, he's a badass when necessary, but he can communicate as in touch with things. He's not going to go cry at the Notebook, keeping with the Ryan Gosling theme, but still, he knows what's up, and he's also brave enough. And there's the thing too. I mean, in that men's movement, vulnerability, you can find a lot. That's a polarizing word right there. But, I think you may have mentioned Jordan Peterson before, and love him or hate him. I think the guy's on target. I think the guy is on target. And he talks about this idea of being vulnerable. There's a strength in vulnerability of being able to look inward and then to be able to communicate that. And so it is that point. And I think he also says though, that the eye of a man should be dangerous, but be able to control it. I think that's really
we're looking for Lancelot, we're looking for I don't know about everyone again, but we're, sort of romanticizing the fantasy of having the champion who is also a knight, that can defend against, and yet, yes, my lady.
Exactly. So so I had a conversation this week with a single woman named Shay. She's now in a relationship, but because she's got a bunch of friends who are in the same position that she is. She's been divorced just a couple of 3 years. She had just started getting back into the dating world. And I was asking her about this concept of how you read masculinity on a profile. Listen to what she said.
I knew what I didn't want. And masculinity versus, non-masculine, that's really such a personal choice, because what is masculinity? And where do you draw the line of where you're becoming too effeminate? I mean, I think that really depends on how I grew up. I dated enough meatheads to know what that can come with. And that's a big ego, a womanizer, not all the time, but you look through culturally, that's sort of what they're like. And it really depends on where you are. So I think it's interesting because the girls I talk to, there's a range of what they're looking for. And it depends on a lot what stage they're in and they're looking, what their history is, and who they are really. I mean, some of them, maybe the stronger women who maybe are leaders, maybe looking for a less masculine person. And I have some friends who go for the bad boys. They don't care what happens and they keep getting hurt. Why? I don't know. But there's a lot of how did they grow up? What was their history like? And I think a lot of it is environment and also, your history in your own relationships.
So, Bradley, you're anxious to jump in on this because this triggered it for you.
Totally. Well, I agree with her 100% in that it is a stylistic preference. It is what are you attracted to? What do you enjoy? Has to do maybe with your upbringing, but strong women can want a variety of things. And what's funny, and I've shared this story with Hoyt before, but there was a woman when I lived in Atlanta. There was a woman I went out with and we were communicating, and she was what I call discount Jennifer Aniston. I mean, she looked exactly like Jennifer Aniston. I mean, she was snarky, she was smart, she was fun, she was a strong kind of alpha chick, and that's what I love. Okay, I'm really attracted to that. But what's funny is we decided, we were talking about this. We thought we should go away. We should like try and give this a go and go away for a weekend. And she goes, "Look, Bradley." She goes, "Look, it'd be a great weekend. We would have an intense hot time, and we would want to kill each other at the end of the weekend. And the reason is because you are entirely too alpha for me. I need a beta. I need some man I can completely walk on, and that is not you." And I thought of that, and I thought, well, thank you. I thought, well, that's the best compliment. If that's the best thing I've ever heard there, because I don't want to be that guy. Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
It's not you, it's me.
Well, really, because I thought, well, I'm not going to sit there and
fell for it.
I totally. No, I mean, but I've been that guy. I mean, my history is, I have sold out. I understand those mixed messages very well. Because look, that's probably why I got married, when I did. Okay. It was like, oh, well, instead of actually just, pardon the term, but just nutting up and going, hey, this doesn't work for me. This is not right. You try and make everybody happy. And this is in friendships and relationships and anything. You try and make everybody happy. You try and be vanilla. You try and be Ken. Guess what happens? You make nobody happy, including yourself. And really, that's it. I mean, we talk this polarization thing, it doesn't have to mean extremes. It just means being willing to stand up for yourself. I mean, we talked about what women look for or seems to be, what does masculinity mean online? Online, it's tough anyway, because it's just a picture. Okay. You can't really tell. It's a glorified version of hot or not. But when you actually talk to somebody, decisiveness. I mean, I'll tell you how I got Shannon. One of the things here, she read something. She goes, "I made the mistake of Googling you, and I read something you wrote." And it was an article I had written about how a grown-ass woman does not want to hang out. You need to date her. You need to actually make a decision, show up, have a plan. This is not rocket science, okay? You're not splitting the atom here. You're not Oppenheimer, okay? And so it's the idea of just something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a plan, because there are so many strong, badass, independent, capable women out there who are doing it every day. The last thing they want when they show up for a date or whenever is, damn it, I have to make the plans now too. Yeah. Really, I just can't have my girlfriends. It's a hell of a lot easier. And so that's it right there.
What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do?
Yeah. So
have an opinion.
Morgan,
make it the plan. Yeah.
Morgan, you are a strong, competent woman.
Thank you.
An alpha, I would say.
Yeah.
How do you look at this? So what is your type, and what's your experience in gauging the level of masculinity that you're looking for in somebody you date?
I mean, I'm clearly no expert because I'm still single, right? I mean, I have had a series of monogamous relationships. I was married for a short time. But, I think, we talked a little bit about how many options there are out there, which is it's a hard thing to navigate. But, we're all kind of looking for that perfect for us person. And what does that look like? And what does that mean? For me, I know myself very well. So I don't waste a lot of time on things that I know are ultimately going to fall apart, somewhat similar to the woman that Bradley was just talking about. It's like, you know what? I know I would chew you up. That won't work. If I need somebody as strong as me, but in a different way, where I can lead in certain parts of it because I'm going to anyway. Anything to do with, the feeling of things or design or the layers of emotion in the relationship. And And even in my own career and the things that I want to accomplish and the travel and the freedom and choosing things like that. But I want a guy who's certain about me, number one. First
Mhm.
thing is going to be, I pick you. You're the one I pick because that goes a long way. This I'm not sure. I'm checking my options open. Yeah, not interested in it. If I feel that, even smell it kind of, sort of, I have moved on. If they don't see in me, my value, that's the first thing. So certainty is really important to me. It's also important that they have something that they're passionate about in the world and doing. So that, Esther Perel talks about this as far as, monogamy and how do you stay monogamous in something we're not really geared to do, is by being able to see your partner across the room on fire doing the thing that they are really good at. And you're like, woo, yay, that's mine. It's super important for me. I always, because I've been a director for a very long time, I use this phrase that I need a wide shot. I need to go to the wide shot and see how this looks, how this person is moving through the world, and whether I'll choose, to spend a little time investigating that. I'm obviously not doing so well on the results, but
No, that's
my goal anyway.
that's great. Bradley?
I think one thing too is, we talk about what each of us wants. Look, there's a gap, there's a void. When you have a man and a woman together, when you're dating, okay, or looking to date, there is that gap in there that needs to be filled. And the challenge, part of the challenge is on both sides is men are often confused now of, hey, should I step into this gap? Should I take the lead? Should I be decisive? Should I make the plans? All of these things, which old school, yeah, you should. But the other thing is, in absence of anyone stepping into that, women step into it. And this is my experience with a lot of clients, okay? A lot of female clients, is because someone is strong, a woman is strong, capable, independent, handling things, she gets shit done. She jumps into that space instead of the man or first. And so I can't tell you, one of my favorite, if I say favorite, it just happens a lot. When you're dealing with someone, it's like, well, you know what? I'm going to do this. And if he can't handle me you know what? That's great. But you have to take a beat. You have to take a beat, because just as you want that man to step up and lead, he wants a strong woman, but he doesn't want a buddy. He doesn't want to have to sit there and be a competition, because guess what? He doesn't want to sleep with his friend. He doesn't want to sleep with his best buddy out there. He doesn't want to always have to be this constant back and forth head butting. So it's this delicate dance of both, of the man leading and the woman allowing to lead. I know that's not very popular with a lot of people, but knowing he's capable of doing that.
And leading is it's subjective, right? So leading in what capacity, in
Correct.
in your life together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is.
It doesn't mean I want to be submissive to someone in every aspect of my life. On occasion, in the bedroom, yes, of course, but not all the time.
No.
It's a balance. It's a dance. We're constantly assessing who's going to, exert themselves now, who's going to push forward in this, and then who's going to recede.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work because, my experience is that's when men, I get a lot of people that say, men don't like strong women. No, men love strong women. A strong one, there's nothing sexier than a strong woman who will lean into her feminine. It's like knowing when to step up, just like a man. You know when to step up and lead. You know when to actually kind of show your heart a little bit. It's both ways. Nothing sexier on both fronts. And you can't tell that you can't tell that online. You actually have to have a conversation with somebody. So the point of, the point of all this is swipe, have no more than 3 back and forth texts, then get your ass on the phone or a real conversation and talk to somebody in real life.
Great advice. And that's also a great spot for us to take a pause here. And we will be back with Bradley and Morgan in just a moment. Behind the Swipe is made possible by real online daters just like you, willing to share their personal and authentic stories and perspectives as they seek love, romance, and intimacy online. Head on over to behindtheswipe.com. Click the Be a Guest link at the top of the page. There, You'll learn about some of our upcoming episode topics and how you can help. All right, so before we jump back into the topic at hand, this feckless Ken, let's say, I want to learn a little more, Morgan, about your reconnection with Barbie. It's an amazing story, and I think our listeners would love to hear this. This is the early 2000s. You've been successful in your career. You couldn't just march in with credentials and do something, but you had an amazing opportunity. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. I started my directing career in the music video. So I was a professional dancer first. I was a Laker girl in the late 80s. I was a professional dancer with Donna Summer, Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul. I did the whole creative thing in front of the camera. I was on, this is going way back. I don't know if you can cut all this out, but I was on the Dirty Dancing tour. I was a lead dancer on, and the director of that show recognized leadership in me and was like, I mentioned one day when I'm a producer, he said, "Oh, I need a producer, I'll teach you." And I'm like, "Really? Okay, cool." So he taught me production in music videos. I realized quite quickly I hated it. It was numbers. I didn't even have a computer. I was like, this is really hard, budget, all of that stuff. But I did lean into the directorial piece of it. So I became, with the help of some colleagues, became a music video director in the 90s. 93, I think I started directing music videos, had a really successful stint and I was only one of very few women in the world that was getting those opportunities. My male counterparts often would just jump straight from music videos into features, just like because they had a penis. But I didn't even realize that was sort of a block for me. Being a woman was a block for me. It never occurred to me. I just thought, I guess they're better than me or whatever. I come to, now know what the data supports around that and exposure and all of that unconscious bias and stuff that was affecting my career. But one of the few areas where female directors get to jump to is toys, toy commercials. And because I was a bit of a Barbie fanatic, I used to do Barbie Christmas trees. I would take all my collection of Barbies and make Christmas trees out of them. My producer at the time, Michelle Abbott, her girlfriend Isadora was a producer on at an ad agency called Ogilvy and Mather, and they had the Mattel business. They had the Barbie Mattel business, and she was like, "I think Morgan would be a great director for Barbie." And I was like, oh yeah, sign me up for that. That was what I was made for. I could do this. And it was really hard to get those jobs, right? You couldn't just jump across one genre of something as a woman, for sure, into something else. Men, there was there were more decision makers in the room that were, helping and aiding their, colleagues move on. But as a female director, that wasn't the case. But so I got this opportunity to pitch my ideas for how I would shoot these Barbie campaigns. It was the largest campaign they'd ever done in one go. It was 14 shoot days, which as a director, because you get paid for the day, it takes you months of prep, but you get paid a large sum of money for one day. That's how they just budget it. And because it was 14 shoot days, it was a small fortune for someone like me at that time. I had a 1-year-old child and I was like a single mom, and it was super awesome opportunity. So I fought really hard for it. I custom made a pop-up book and embossed it with Barbie's name in blue, in pink suede. And at the time it wasn't digital yet. So we weren't doing our treatments to bid on these jobs digitally. I had to do it in, physical form. So I marched in this huge pop-up book that I'd created on how I was going to express myself around the job. And the agency was like, "We love her. She's got it." I got the job. And it went on to become one of the best doll commercial or, directors in the world. There were only a few of us. Lori Precious is a colleague of mine. She and I were always competing for the same work. And I think I had maybe a good 5 years of Mattel specific, and then went on to do dolls for, Bratz and American Girl and all the other doll brands. But, I probably did 100 Barbie or Barbie related commercials, Fairytopia, Mermaidia. And for me at the time, not only was it something I loved and passionate about, I'm super passionate about the brand, but I understood it from every angle. And when you're working with a brand who has this iconic character, Barbie is treated with enormous respect from the company. You know, Mattel is the company that Barbie built, and they treat her with reverence. And one of the things that we talked about every time I shot a commercial for them, it was the aspiration. So, what is the child's aspiration in this play pattern? And without question, they are just so good at that. And they've done it here with this movie. They've done it again. They've reinvented themselves again in a really modern way. So, big fan.
Oh, that's a great story. You know, as you were telling that, I was thinking, having just seen the movie, that, oh, Morgan is video Barbie, except you probably don't have a TV in your back, right?
Director Barbie.
Oh, director Barbie.
Nice.
But she's blonde. I think there was a brunette one I might have had at one point. This is the only one I found.
I love it. I love it. All right. So I want to lean back into some of these issues of conveying an appropriate balance of masculinity in your profile. And I want to go back to an interview that I had done previously where we talked about this. So I'm going to play some of that for you right now. You may remember Paul from our episode on rebound relationships. I had an opportunity to see Paul's online dating profile early on, and I was impressed at how he was able to split the difference between this masculine presentation and a more sensitive side. So I asked him, was that a conscious process?
As a male, you think in terms more of kind of the masculine, the go-go, the strength, the types of things that, I hate to use a 70s term, the macho feel though, but that less sensitive side of you, especially when you're first starting out, you start thinking your goal is to meet as many women as you can and to show your value and your worth. And that comes across as a guy as being, strong and those types of things. But as you really step back from it and you start to think about it, at least as we try and decipher these complex things called women, you come to realize that there's another side to you that they want to know. They want to know the sensitive side. They want to know the friendly side. They want to know the intelligent and the humorous side of you. And so I made sure that I brought up some things that I'm pretty good at, along the lines of cooking a lot of stuff, and that's, I would consider that to be more of a sensitive thing than I would a kind of a masculine thing, considered to be a masculine thing. My photos kind of varied from just doing normal everyday activities to, of course, you got to have a requisite photo where you look good, like you've been in the gym or something like that. So it was really a balance, and it took me a little bit to kind of figure it out. It took some help from some girls, to be honest with you, some friends of mine who said, hey, okay, this is a good idea to emphasize this. Maybe you don't emphasize this as much, or you do emphasize this. I love this photo, not so much, that type of stuff. So really, to understand what really is important to a female, you may need to get a female involved to help you. That's the moral of my story. And that's how I came to craft what I put together.
So before, I want your feedback on this, Bradley, and you too, Morgan. But I have to tell you that one of the brilliant things that I thought that Paul did in his online dating profile was that his lead photo, was a black and white. He was in a tux.
Oh.
It was in shadow. He had a martini. He was doing the whole James Bond thing, and it fucking worked.
Sexy.
It's a good photo. And
I love that he approached this like a job. His profile, he's like, I'm advertising myself right now. And I know who my target demographic is. And I'm going to play to my strengths and what I believe my buyer wants. I love this.
I thought it was brilliant. So
I think it is genius. So I'm going to, I applaud him. He did it right. I'm also going to tip my hand here. It's kind of like the magician telling you how the trick works. Because I was single for a long time, and I did the apps and everything, and I killed it. I did really well. And there were a number of reasons why. One, when I first, I thought they were gross. Okay. So if any of your new listeners here are thinking, well, I don't know, online's kind of disgusting. And I equate it to the ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese. Okay. Kind of fun, kind of gross. All right. It's both. When I first went on, I was reluctant. So the first thing I did is I got with friends of mine who were attractive women I wasn't involved with, who were going to shoot me straight. And I said, okay, here's what I'm thinking. And I ran it by them. But what I also did, and this is the genius move, okay? I don't care what you may think sleazy, whatever, but it just works. And women do the same. Women do the same thing. I said, show me your profiles. So I sat down with friends of mine who were women, and I got to see what these other jackasses were doing. I got to see what the competition was doing. So what I did is I got to see what every meathead out there was, every D-bag, everybody else, and what they wrote, the pictures they put. And I thought, okay, now I know what the bar is, and it's remarkably low. And I positioned it in a totally different way. And so not only with pictures, I went out and I got real pictures done. And then I also, to his point, I made it funny. It wasn't a resume, and it wasn't I like this. I'm not a short order cook here. I was willing to tell exactly who I was, what I do, how they could find me. Okay. And also, meaning like, okay, if you want to Google me, here's the story. I'm okay with that. There's no innuendo. There's nothing hidden. And then I also, and this is what I think Hinge does such a good job with. Okay. Those prompts, I was not afraid to be a little vulnerable with it. So one of my favorite prompts that Hinge had, they asked us stupid questions, right? It was, what are you most embarrassed about? What's the most embarrassing thing on your Spotify playlist? So I put this in my profile. I said, most embarrassing thing in my playlist, not ashamed. I said, Wham, Careless Whisper. I'll own that every day. And you know what? What's right behind it? Spice Girls. Okay.
No shame in that game.
I said, no shame in my game at all on that one. I will own that. And you know what? I got more traction out of that. Okay. Than anything, because they're like, okay, kind of funny. Not afraid to sit there and go, well, I'm cool and I'm awesome and I'm this.
It's so funny that you say, oh, I'm not afraid to show my profile, but you were using that as a leader. You were like, oh yeah, this is going to hook them. This is good. I'm so proud of how I am. And that's an Esther Perel moment. That's like going, okay, that could be my dude who's like doing all this really cool stuff. So clever.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. People either put it in men and women. You can tell the bitter ones. You can tell the ones you want to stay away from, 10 feet away. It's like non-smokers, non-Republicans.
No drama.
No drama. No gold diggers. Not to sleep around. You're like, good God, what a pain
that
in the
one
ass.
word in a profile, I will pass every single time. If a guy says, no drama, please, that means I want to do whatever I want all the time. I want to have no pushback about anything I do. So it's like, oh, clue. That and the fish. The fish, nope, not a chance.
Yeah.
And the shirt, unless you've got that 6-pack ab of variety.
Well, sure, it's like a 50-50 deal. Sure, it's like water skiing. Too many sports pictures, though. Yeah, no, pass.
Yeah. Or picture, and this goes for men and women here. Okay, I know we're a little off topic on this, but this works. Okay. No, I love this. I totally love this. The worst thing you could do, men or women, okay, is have a picture with your friends. Because if you are, you damn better you're
the
hottest
best one in that group.
You better be the hottest one. You pick your ugliest friends and you definitely go take your pictures then. Because I can't tell you how many times it's been like, oh, which one is it? Oh, damn. Okay. So, that no one wants to see your kids.
Nope.
It's just.
Nobody wants to see blurred out ex-girlfriends. That's amazing that that's still a thing. It's extraordinary.
So,
it's like, dude, your picture taken by yourself.
I did see one funny one, though. It was a guy and he had his arm around this girl and he had her face kind of whited out. It was like, this could be you. And I thought, funny, really funny. I like that.
Again, swiping left.
But
Morgan, you've seen a bunch of these profiles of guys online. What percentage of them get it right? What percentage
God.
have like,
I mean,
regardless of what they
zero,
look like, what,
0.1. I mean, and to the point where you kind of have to close one eye to see if there's potential in the deal. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to have to pretend I didn't see that part. Is there anything in this? But I mean, I'm ruthless because I mean, what am I going to do? Drag some guy from Atlanta with me to France when I go to move and restore my chateau? That's not happening. So now I'm like,
Why
unless
not?
they're what?
Why not?
I'm not. Yeah, unless it looks like they're a pilot or a contractor and has worked on historic properties, maybe.
The next site you're on is going to be like some, constructionlove.com or something like that.
Yeah,
You're
do they
gonna
have
find
such
a
a thing?
builder.
Like the farmer one? Like, do they have
Farmers
a
only. Yeah.
specialized thing for contractors?
Remodelers only.
Would be awesome.
so Bradley, I know that you know this, and there's that reference that Morgan just made to the chateau in France. And that's because you've got a channel where you are actively looking for a rundown chateau to build into your Barbie dream house.
That's right. That's right. There's no surprise that I am still some sort of fairy tale finding woman. Like I've been that way since I was a little girl. I still have romantic fantasies of living in a chateau, but I'm just going to do it by myself. No prince required at this point. I'm going to do it myself. So yeah, I have always wanted to live in France. I've always dreamed of having kind of an epic chateau home to live in, but never thought that, I wasn't born into royalty. How could I make that, a reality? And then, during lockdown, well, there have been articles over the years of, very affordable chateau in not just France, but, primarily in France, because there's 43,000 of them in the country, not all for sale, but they, they're cheap because they're so expensive to maintain and restore and, but still for what you can get here in the US. And so then during lockdown, it's coming, all these Brits were doing YouTube channels about their chateau finding and chateau restoration. And I'm like, all right, my daughter's grown. She's out of the house. If I don't do this now, when am I going to do it? So I just started the wheels in motion. And, there was some, was a guide for me to do it. There were other people doing it and doing it well. And I thought, okay, if they can make money off of their YouTube channels and help support the restoration or the dream, then you could do it. You have a background in production. Like I should be able to do it. But I'm the slowest editor on earth. I've only put out a couple of episodes. I've been looking for an editor to step in because I just don't enjoy it. But a lot of these have a high bar for how I want it to look. But yeah, so my channel's called Go Go Chateau. It's like total, 60s retro, me dancing, looking, for a chateau in France, mashup. Yeah,
Well,
that's my jam.
I love it. It's always been my dream to have a friend with a chateau in France.
There you go. So you're going to promote it on your behind the swipe. So you're going to assist me in the
That's it.
audience building.
That's exactly right.
you.
You will definitely
Appreciate that.
get the behind the swipe bump from this.
Yeah, I'm hoping that at some point there will be a prince that enters the picture. But I don't know. It could be quite intimidating to have a woman with a chateau that you're trying to seduce. So we'll see.
I think you got this.
Thanks.
Bradley, any last
course,
thoughts
yeah.
on, guiding some of our listeners into the importance of showing the breadth of who you are in your profile?
That's really the only choice. I think your listeners, the people here are we're all in midlife, that, 40s, 50s and beyond. And the point is we've spent so much time up to this point, probably wearing other hats, other labels, some of them put on by other people. And so we've learned the lesson to, there's really no other choice. You don't have that much time left. So just be you and your people will find you. And that's not meant to be pithy or cliche. It's just true. And, I love the fact Morgan is just saying, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do this for me. And you know what? Hey, if Prince Charming or Ken or G.I. Joe, whomever chooses to show up, that's awesome. You can come along for the ride. Well, I think that being honest with yourself is the best the best thing any of us can do. That's advanced adulting right there.
And just remember,
Amen.
you're already enough.
You're enough. That's all enough. You got the Kinergy.
All right, Bradley, where can folks find you online?
I am all over social media at I'm Bradley Richardson. So whether it's the web or whether it's Instagram or TikTok, I'm Bradley Richardson is the primary place. So love to follow me there and for good stuff helping grown-ass adults navigate midlife, and love to hear from you.
And Morgan, one more time on that Go-Go Chateau channel.
Yeah, YouTube is Go-Go Chateau. Instagram is more MOR underscore is IS underscore MOR. So more is more, but without the E's. And also gogo.chateau on Instagram.
So you guys have been a delight as we've unpacked this conundrum of Ken. And I really appreciate all the great advice that you've got and the real world experience that backs it up. So I know
Conundrum. A conundrum. That's
conundrum. All right.
Conundrum.
Hey, thanks so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, boy.
If you're enjoying Behind the Swipe, you can subscribe to our weekly episode feed on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Instagram at Behind the Swipe Podcast. Got an over 40 dating story? We'd love to hear it. Just go to behindtheswipe.com and click on the Be a Guest tab. We just might feature you on one of our upcoming episodes. I'm your host, Hoyt Prysock. Until next week, swipe fearlessly.